Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. If you can hear me properly, if you can hear me clearly, please drop something in the chat. Say good morning. Say hello. And if you've been here day 1, day 2, just put a day 3 in the chat. If you weren't here on day 1 and you weren't here on day 2, you really missed. And I'm not just hyping, like no cap. Hey, African butterfly, you missed, like you really missed out. Day 1, we had Chukwunanso Philly. His session was titled "You Can't Google That," and he spoke about what happens when you have an idea, you have a dream, but you can't find a ready template out there because many people haven't done it before. and you don't even know half of how to get to that dream, but you just know in your mind this is what you want. And he spoke on what that entails, how he eventually has got to where he is today. He's an artist, he's an entertainer, he's a co-owner of an artists collective. He's done so many things, exhibitions, all of that good stuff. And then we spoke to Tracy Oyekami. She spoke about, having a career, your strategy, how to be visible at work, having people at work not just see your contribution, but also be able to, yes, you'll be able to catch the replay later, of course, for anyone who missed out. Also for Tracy, she spoke about career strategy, how our community as African immigrants, sometimes the way we were raised, it has made us be so collective that we cannot step out as individuals and shine. We get shy, we want to hide. She spoke about why we need to break out of that and how that is also important to, getting the 6 figures and the 7 figures and just becoming more visible at work. And then yesterday was powerful. We had Rashid or Jeremy Day. He spoke about, mental health, intergenerational wellness. In fact, I'm going to correct myself because he said he wasn't just going to focus on mental health. We have to look at it as a community as a whole, health in general. But of course, he's a mental health therapist, so we also spoke on that. And then to close out the night, we had our 2 mompreneurs, Excel Ombacha and Dr. Timi Aregbesola. They spoke about running a business, having a regular 9 to 5, and also being a mom and all that entails. I was so happy to have them last night because we also had people who are not married, are not moms, maybe hope to be moms at some point. So hearing the truth and hearing, just them being honest and vulnerable, that was so refreshing. This morning, we have another guest, and we're going to be talking about financial freedom. Yes, for those asking for the replay, you can go check it out at on our YouTube, but not now. Today, this morning, if you need your friends to know that we're on, please let them know that we're on right now, because this morning is very important to us as a community. The question is financial freedom possible? Especially now, we're hearing words like financial freedom. It's a buzzword right now. Intergenerational wealth. Everybody's talking about wealth, but some of us are thinking, is that for people that were born here? Is that for people whose parents were born here? Is it really for us? So that's what our guest will be talking about. I'm going to introduce him in a minute. But before I introduce him, please drop your city in the chat. So where are you watching from? I'm in Jersey. So if you're not in Jersey, drop it in the chat. If you're in Jersey, drop it in the chat. Let's see where you are. Yes, Delaware, New Jersey. Yes. I was hoping to see someone from India or something. That's the power of the internet. Florida. Okay, let's keep going. Let's drop it in the chat. So I'm going to start introducing him now. Oluwaseyi Dapherede is a financial advisor and an agile coach. He has a strong passion for educating and empowering the minority community to be financially literate and become financially independent by creating generational wealth. He has been invited to several gatherings to talk about building lasting generational wealth. And today he's going to extend that wisdom to us. And hopefully, we're going to also extend it to family members and to friends. Friends, real friends, don't let friends wallow in ignorance. That's how you know real friends. They let you know when you are slipping on the wisdom game. And I'm also going to tell you that this guest is very, very passionate about what he does. Trust me, I know. It is all I hear about from morning till night. But I'm not going to say more than that. I'm just going to welcome our guest, Oluwaseyi Dapherede.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Biodun Dapherede. I mean, everybody can see that's my wife. It's a privilege to be here on this platform, to be part of this conference. Like the host clearly explained, I am very passionate about empowering, especially our own community, with not just wisdom, but also practical steps you could take to create lasting wealth in your family. Today, we're going to be addressing, looking at wealth from a very simple perspective. We're not going to look at it as some kind of gigantic step that you're going to take, but we're going to look at it from the step of taking one step at a time. Now, for most people, it's very difficult.
Recording in progress.
It's very difficult to start architecting or putting down a structure of how they want their financial, how they're going to actually make ends meet, how they're going to be able to pay for their kids' college, how they'll be able to retire. But what we're going to do today is, before we go into those big, huge details, we want to just see what are the steps you can take. And it's so apt that the title of today's presentation is financial freedom possible for us? So I'm going to try to present my screen now. Please let me know if you can see it. And then many of you thought it critically important to continue to persist during your program. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Awesome. Great. So this morning I will be speaking from the perspective of a metaphor, and I like using this because most people can relate to it. So I'm not talking about something, financial, and it looks very scary. I'm not using any technical terms. I'm going to simplify this so that everybody can understand it. Now, one of the things that coming to America or living in a country like this, it does is you can look at your environment and you see the people that are owning all these multinationals, living in big complexes, own this place, own that, and most of the time you find out people like yourself are not that many in those areas. You're talking about the technology industry. You're talking about different. Everywhere you go, we seem not to be that much. We don't have enough representation in that community or in that sector. And it's all about getting the right information. So this morning, I'm just going to go straight into the presentation itself. Like I said, I'm going to be using the metaphor of a seed to just break it down and make people understand that financial freedom it's attainable, can be achieved by everyone if you just put your mind to it. And it starts with your mind. So my first, sorry. So like a plant, everything in life starts with the seed. And that's where I want you to what that's the foundation I want to lay. Because if you look at if you look at all these huge organizations like Facebook and the rest, it started with an idea. And if you're lucky, you get what is called seed investment. Now, the idea behind the seed is that it is something that looks like insignificant. It doesn't even look like what. So in terms of, if you're a Christian, you hear about the mustard seed. And you see that little item or that little object, and you're thinking, okay, what is this capable of doing? But every big thing that has happened in this life came from that idea of a seed. And that's what I'm trying to explain today. And I'm going to use that to connect it to how you can start small, but with a picture that you have in your mind, and with a few help from people like myself and maybe some of my colleagues that are here, you can actually plan the kind of future that you want. Now, one of the things that the question that I get asked most of the time is, where do I start? Right now, I don't have anything. I don't. People say they don't have. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. And one of the things that I want to put across to you is this: regardless of wherever you are right now, there is something that you can start. I would go back to one of the stories that I came across as a Christian. There was a woman that had been asked, what do you have in your house? And she said she didn't have anything, but I have a jar of oil. And before you knew it, that jar of oil became something that was, became a factory that was manufacturing. So there is nothing like you don't have anything. If it's a gift, if it's your ability to sing, if it's your ability to write, if it's a salary that you're earning. And in this presentation, I'm going to focus on your salary. I'm going to focus on the financial aspect of this discussion. And in terms of what you're earning right now, if you're earning $1,000, there is a seed in it. If you're earning $200, there is a seed in it. And so the notion that you don't have anything, we need to dispel it. Because right there, if you have a salary, if you have some kind of gift, you already have something. The only thing right now is you have to make sure that you're able to extract from that stuff what you call a seed, so you can put it aside. And I just quickly showed a simple layout here of how do you really want to start. To get to the place you're going. And I said you start with a seed. So usually what happens is, and this journey is not something I'm not saying something I haven't gone through myself. So this journey is something that I'm familiar with. And I've been in that position where I'll tell myself that where am I going to get the money to put money aside for this, for that? My salary is barely enough. I have bills to pay. But I can tell you for a fact that those things are important, but your future is even much more important. And let's assume that you start with, let's say, you got a job and you're just looking at what should I do? Should I what can I where can I start? And from my illustration here, I'm saying if you're earning a salary, you already have a seed. If you're earning some income, if you have talent and you have time, you have a seed. Now, the next step for you is that don't just sit on that seed, try to sow the seed. Now, how do you do that? You invest or you put it into some kind of anything that you think, for example, like what we're doing right now. Let's say you like designing website. Whatever it is, you need some amount of money from that salary to just get it started. And in this case, let's say it's money, right? Start saving little by little to get to where you're going. But the question is, do not say that you don't have anything to put aside. You can't eat all your bread. You have to make sure that you have something to sow. And that the reason you're doing that is if you're only focused on today, it's going to be difficult for you to see your way through tomorrow. So what you should be looking at is what can I do today to make sure that I have a future that everybody in my family can be proud of. And what next? Did I say you have to grow the seed? Means you have to be consistent. And now let's use the metaphor of a stock. Let's say you decide to start investing in the stock market. And whatever you get, let's say you're getting $1,000 monthly, and you're able to get $50 from it to put aside. I know in some application, Robinhood and the rest, you could actually take money and start putting aside $50 on a monthly basis. And what you're doing basically is you're taking that seed and you're growing it by making sure consistently every month you're putting something aside. It looks very small, but wait a minute. When you do that consistently, you begin to see something happen. But the whole essence of this discussion today is to actually show you a different paradigm to what I'm just explaining. But like I said, if you follow this journey, it starts with you getting acid, sowing it, then looking for ways to multiply it. And I can tell you that everyone here who has probably set up a business, is doing so, is probably following almost the same sequence. And I can tell you also that in most cases, I probably have done so many of these things to myself. I've in the past sold on Amazon. I've in the past done, built a website with the intention of also doing some selling some product on it as well. Now, this part is very common to most entrepreneurs. You grow it, then you try to multiply the business. In some instances, they say you scale it, right? Try to expand it. And in this instant, if I use the same metaphor as a plant, or use metaphor as a stock market, multiplying it means you want to make sure that you're putting it in an investment where there is what is called a compound growth. So meaning that you're not just putting it in something that's unstable, you're putting it in a place that you're getting much more than what you invested in the amount. Because if all you're getting is what you put inside, then you're not doing that business right. If all you're getting is what is all your sweat, then you're not really going to break even. So if you're doing that, if you're multiplying whatever seed you have, the next thing you want to do is to protect it. And in this instance, you probably want to make sure you set up an LLC. You know, if you're an entrepreneur, if you are someone who is into investment, you also want to make sure that you're not overpaying in taxes, and that's the protection aspect, right? You can't start and with the same way where you started, you didn't have a business name registered, and you're just expanding, and you're not looking back and say, what can I do to protect it? When you started with a seed, you didn't have a reason to actually set up an LLC at that point in time. So it's okay. It's okay at that point in time. But to shoot, once you start multiplying, you need to set up an LLC to protect yourself. You need to make sure that your taxes are in place. Because the last thing you want is, after multiplying a seed, is for something to come and eat it up. So you set up an LLC. And if it's an investment, what do? You find a place where you can put it so the taxes doesn't eat up everything you work with. And the next thing is the most interesting part for most of us, investors, business people alike, which is to distribute your wealth. And basically, that's the point where you start making money and you start saying, okay, I want to buy a yacht, I want to do this. But also, another caution there is that you have to make sure that whatever you're doing is not attracting the taxman. Whatever you're doing is not triggering additional taxes. And after that, the way to wealth is passing it on to the next generation. And that is where my focus is going to be on this month. After you started with a seed, you put it in the soil, you've grown the product or the plant or the investment, you multiplied it, you protected it, you distributed it. Now, the cycle that actually that breaks poverty, is passing it on to the next generation. And you can see that with almost all the people that you have out there. Jeff Bezos, why is he where he is right now? Because somebody gave him a seed capital, his parents. They were able to give me $100,000 to go up and start a company. And right now, what do you have? You have Amazon. Now, the paradigm shift I'm asking for right now is that when you're thinking about financial freedom, you're not just thinking about yourself. You're thinking about 25 generations, 10 generations, the next generation down the line, with your name be on the map. Do you have a clear-cut roadmap for making sure that never in the life or the history of your generation will they have to beg for bread? And that is where I'm going to. I've only been able to share to you that wherever you are right now in the face of your life, just all you need is a seed. All you need to start is a seed. And with everything, the aim is you're trying to make sure you pass wealth over to the next generation. Now, that's a little bit about that method. Now, to really go into the nitty-gritty of today, I want to show you something that we need to look at. And this is going to be more like a paradigm shift. For so many of us, we came into this environment thinking that the only way to go up is by working 3-4 jobs. We came into this environment thinking that the only way to go up is by saving a lot in the bank. For some of us who were told to even enroll in a 401k, and for some of us who were told to even to do some kind of investment, and at the end of the day, if all we're doing is what everybody is doing, then how are the top 1% top 1%? If all what we're doing is what everybody's saying, then we should all be rich. But that can't be the truth. There's something else that people are doing that keeps them in that 1%. And that's one thing I want you to. So please be as open as possible, because some of these things might sound like new to you, but they aren't entirely impossible. I'm not going to be saying something extremely, have their historic? No. This is just basic math and common sense. And the first thing I want you to understand is, like I explained in the metaphor of the plant or the seed. You want to sow the seed, you want to accumulate it, you want to protect it, and you want to distribute it in such a way that it's not taxed. So there are three things that I want to introduce you to, the three rules of money. And the first one is called the rule of 72. The rule of 72, so you don't get confused, is just a simple rule called compound interest. And in summary, what it says is, if you put your money in an investment that is giving you an average return of, say, let's say 1%, it would, to know the number of years it would take to double, you have to divide that 1%. You have to divide 1%, divide 72 by 1%. So when you put, let's say, in this illustration, I have someone who is 29 years, this person put in $10,000. And you can start with anything. This is just for the purpose of illustration. And he put in $10,000 in what would look like, this looks like a savings account to me, because the ones that give this kind of miserly returns. So a 1% investment would take 72 years for it to double. And I see so many of us, this is where we're playing. You know, we came into this country and we're like, no, I don't want to do anything too risky. I want to put it in Wells Fargo, and you're getting your 1%. But it's going to take you 72 years, meaning at 29, you started early, you started putting a lot of money aside. So 29, you put in $10,000, you're waiting on your 1%. It will take you 101 years for you to make $20,000. I don't know how many of us have that kind of time, but I don't. Because at that time, my son had to go to college and everything. But let's even move on from that. And let's say you're even more adventurous a little bit, then you go to a 4%. Now, if you're doing a 4% investment, you're putting your money aside in a 4% investment vehicle, it will take you an average of 18 years for that money to double. It's not bad, but yeah, it's better than 1%. But what if you could do a 6%? What if you could do a 12%? And all this is just based on, predicated on the premise that there is something called compound interest. And what you're doing is, when you put your money in an investment that's doubling, that's between 6 and 12%, you have a chance of actually doubling that money either every 12 years or every 6 years. Now, I want you to just put what I've said, I want you to put it aside, because all this is going to just make sense at the end of the day. Now, I know most of you are looking at 6 and 12%, and like asking yourself, where can I find this? We'll get to that in a bit. Now, the next rule I want you to look at is, how do you grow your money? Now, there are 3 different ways that money grows, especially that I'm aware of in the US. Is one, it's either it's fixed. Now, this fixed is almost similar to, a bank account and a savings account. And it's flat line. What does that remind you of? When something is flat line, it means it's dead. That's dead on arrival. So you're putting your money in the savings account, you're already dead on arrival. I don't want to see that, but that's what it is. Because in 72 years, you're not going to get anything other than, it's going to take 72 years for your money to grow. Now, I see a lot of us still doing this. It's not bad, it's secured, but let me tell you the story, right? The real picture, you're not looking at it very well. The real picture is that inflation is 6% right now. So if you're getting 1% from the bank, you're actually on the negative. Now, what's inflation? The inflation basically means the ability of your money to go to the market to purchase something that you purchased yesterday, today, and it's still the same cost. So what I mean by 6% is, if you bought something at $1 yesterday, if inflation is 6%, that thing is now $6. That's in price. That's inflation. Simple. So when you put your money in a savings account and it's giving you 6%, inflation is giving you 1%, inflation is 6%, that money in the next 6 years is less than other. You wouldn't be able to use the same amount to get what you get today. That's just inflation. That's inflation for you. And that's where most of us find ourselves. I always say almost 80% in a fixed growth. Now, if you want to create generational wealth, I don't think this is possible. Now, let's say you get a little bit adventurous, and I see a lot of people, millennials, coming into this variable, which is very fantastic because there's a possibility right there for you to grow your money. You could do it. It's possible. And a variable is what you're doing with when you go into stock market. I cannot, draw a similarity between that and a plan. But I probably was wrong because I don't want to put my money in a place that looks like an EKG graph. Because what is going to happen is my money is going up and it's coming down. All the time I'm worried that something's going to happen to it. But what I want, this is not the real trajectory of a plant, actually. A plant, you sow it, it keeps growing, then it uses a harvest. This doesn't look like a plant. It looks like something that today, look at what happened during the week. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world right now. No, not even the world. Probably they say right now he's richer than Rockefeller. Now, Elon Musk, you rush into buying a Tesla stock today. Elon Musk comes in tomorrow, says something ridiculous. Guess what's going to happen? From 1,300, your stock price for Tesla goes down to $1,030. Now that's what happens in the stock market. It's very unpredictable, but it's a leap. It's much better than a fixed investment. Now, where I want you to really look at is what is called an index. And why am I championing this? I'm saying this because I'm looking at myself and yourself, and our stories are the same. And I'm saying, do I have enough to lose in the stock market? I don't have that much money to lose in stock. My money is hard head. Do I have the patience to put it in a fixed? No. But in an index, I'll explain how an index works. Now, an index strategy means that I put in a certain amount in this investment. Now, the stock market is going up. It retains the growth. Let's say the growth is 6% or 12%, it retains it. The stock market is not doing well, it comes down, it lost the previous gain. Now, one of the cardinal truths about wealth accumulation is that you build your money in a place where you're not recording a lot of losses. Wealth is not about how much you had, it's about how much you can keep. Now, an index strategy is showing you that when you put your money in this place, you're not going to lose money, but whatever you lost, whatever you gain, you will retain and you will continue to, continue to increase. It will continue to increase. Now, in the stock market, Elon Musk, let's say we're mirroring the stock market right now. And index strategy doesn't really work like that, but just for the purpose of this illustration, let me just use it. Let's say you gained you participated in that sludge, you end the 1,300. But you are lucky because you are in an index strategy. What that means is when Elon Musk tweets something very poor that he sends the stock market into a frenzy and everybody is scattering around the stock market, the prices tumbles, you don't participate in the losses. You get locked on that 1,300. And if it picks up again, you keep going. And that's how an index strategy works. And that's the protection. You protect your gain. Now, I hope you're able to, if you have any questions, you put it in the chat. Now, look at, please, again, I'm going to go back. 6 to 12%, an index strategy, there's a pattern forming here, right? And I want you to track it as well. Now, the next thing is, how do you grow more? The next question is, how does money get taxed? If there's anything in this country that I realized is you get taxed for everything. I think from the moment you step out from your mom's womb to when you go to your grave, America taxes you on everything. You go to the store, sales tax. You even die, there's something called a death tax. You're alive, you're paying this tax, you're paying that tax. Now, who wants to really make and retain money if all your life what you're doing is paying taxes? Now, there are 3 ways you can be taxed. One is you can be taxed now through a savings account. You put in the money in the savings account, and maybe I haven't painted the picture quite clearly. But if you put 1% in a savings account, you're not actually getting 1% because that 1% is the capital gain you are going to be charged. You're going to be charged. You're going to get a 1099. They're going to tax you for that. So it's less than 1% you're getting from the bank, and you get taxed now. Now, if you do also an investment by stock and you sell it, you're going to be taxed now. So that's the category of one section for how you get taxed. Now there is this section called the tax later people, right? Which is very good. It's a leap as well. And that's where I found myself when I came into this country. And that's where most of us, if you're working with a company, you're probably working, you probably have what is called a 401k. Brilliant idea. I was so sold on this 401k that I thought, yes, I actually created a spreadsheet for myself. And I said, yes, this is my path to financial freedom. But nobody told me that by the time I get to 65, all that $1 million, at least 40% of that belongs to Uncle Sam. Because what? A 401k is a tax later plan. Now, the problem with that is by the time I'm 65 and you take 40% of my $1 million, I don't have the energy to go back to the labor force to make up that 40%. And I still have how many years to live at 65? That's when I want to start enjoying myself. When you take 40% of my $1 million away, I'm left with $600,000 and I'm not working. I still have some. Of course, I want to travel. I want to take care of some things. Is that a time I want to really start going into Walmart to start, pushing carts and standing there? And no, I don't want to do that at that stage of my life. And I'm sorry, I'm not insulting anyone, but I go into Walmart and I see elderly folks working in Walmart, and I know there's a wife, people that are different from us they have all the information, and they probably did a 401k. But why are you in Walmart? What are you still doing working at this very interesting part of your life? And the question just makes sense because that whole investment that they thought was theirs in the 401k, 40% of it belongs to Uncle Sam. And it could get worse. I don't think I want to paint a picture, but it's right here in the face. The whole money that Biden is rolling out, infrastructure fund, $1.3 trillion, you're gonna pay for it. You're gonna pay for it how? In taxes. And you're gonna pay for it now? No, you're gonna pay for it later. And later means right now, taxes are on sale. It's 30%. But in the future, for US as a going concern to exist, they need to tax your 401k. And whatever that rate is, 30%, 40%, 50%, is that hard-earned money that you thought you were going to retire a 401k tax later. Now, enough about that. I don't want that to be the last thing you remember. Because what I really want you to look at is how can I put my money in a place where I'm not going to be taxed at the most important aspect of my life. And that's what is called a tax advantage. So there are different things, there are different places you can put your money where you're tax advantage, meaning that when you get to 65, it doesn't trigger taxes. And one of it is, and these are the different options you can put in a municipal bond, a Roth IRA, executive bonus plan, or what I'm going to go into called a cash accumulation in an insurance policy. Now, one thing I've done is I've shown you 3 different layers of how money works, especially in the US. There is something called the rule of 72, which is the compound interest margin, which says that you can grow your money and double it based on the interest rate you earn. Now, let's say I'm looking at 6 to 12% in terms of, can I find that? Now, let's hold that. Yes, it's possible. Now, how do you want to grow your money fixed or variable? I think most of us will agree that we want to do an index strategy. So can I combine 6 to 12% with an index strategy? Yes, you're heading there. We're almost getting there. Now, how do I want to get taxed? I don't want to be taxed right now. I don't want to put my money in a savings that's flight line that's not giving me anything. I don't want to do a tax later that 401k. I'm putting all my money. I get to 65, then I retire. Someone's going to take 40%. No, but can I put my money in the tax advantage account? Yes. Guess what? Now, the triple beauty, right, is, do you know that you can earn 6 to 12%, put your money in an index strategy, and yet benefit from, get an advantage in taxes in just one solution? And for me, that's the point I'm trying to raise here. The consciousness I'm trying to awaken is that you do not need multiple strategies. You don't need an almighty formula to create a roadmap for you to get financial freedom. You don't need to have too many things doing. You can actually just do all the strategy through what I'm going to introduce to you shortly. And that concept is called an index universal life insurance. And what have we said? Can I grow my money 6 to 12%? Yes. Can I enjoy what is called an index strategy, meaning money is growing, I'm not losing anything, and it's locked? Yes. Can I also enjoy tax advantage? Yes. But guess what? You haven't added. Because I said it's an index universal life insurance, it has what is called an insurance component, meaning you have what is called a death benefit. Oh my God. I have tried so many things within the short period of time I've been in this country. I've sold on Amazon, like I said, like I told you. I've done some investment. I've done, all sort of things. But I'm yet to see. I have a 401k because I'm still employed in employed labor, right? But I've never seen anything like this, where I have a life insurance policy that tells me that my family is safe and everything happens to me. But right there in that policy, I have ability to enjoy 6 to 12% growth, and in some instances, it could be 15%. And not only that, that growth is not, fluctuating like an EKG graph, but it's accumulating and it's locked in an index strategy. And guess what? It also acts as a savings. Does something like that really exist? Is that even possible? In this America, something like, I'm going to let you know, you're lucky today because you're here, because there is something called an IUL that exists, and it's established by the policy called an IRC code 77028, meaning an IRC code is just like a 401k. It's an IRS. Now, meaning that an IUL is backed by the IRS, meaning that you can actually set up yourself and buy a policy that allows you to put money aside for a premium, and that money is accumulating monthly, yearly, and it's locked. It's accumulating 6 to 12%. It's locked. You're not losing money. And you also have the death benefit. You're not, meaning that if anything were to happen to you, your family is covered. Now, I guess most of the questions we're asking is this, and all of us will probably fall in the same category, same group. Do you want to save for the future? Is it possible with this IUL? Yes, very much possible. Because when you're paying your premium, you're also saving your money. Because a portion of that premium, while it's going to maintain the cost of the death benefit, let's say $500,000, a large portion of that is being saved, is savings for you. Now, do you want growth on your investment? I want growth on my, that's what all of us are looking for, right? Yes, you can enjoy that in an IUL. Between 6 to 12%, you can get from an IUL. Now, what else? I want to be able to plan for my kids' college. Is it possible with an index universal life? Very possible. Now, why am I saying this? You don't need to have too many strategies to do all this plan for yourself. Get a college plan. You want to have a business initiative that you want funded. You want to design a retirement plan. You want to protect your family. You have a death benefit in there. You want to pass generational wealth to your family. You want to be financially free. All that is wrapped in an IUL, a life insurance policy that has the side that acts like an investment that uses an index strategy. It's the best combination. And what this does is I don't have to have someone who I'm calling that I'm asking, okay, how's the stock market doing? I want to set up, I need to go and look for another way to a 401k. I need to set up a what's that? The one for a 529 collect fund. No, you don't have to do all this. No, you don't have time for that. You are focused on earning the salary. You're focused on earning money. Just don't worry about that. That's too many strategy, and that's where we get lost. That's where we get confused, because all that different strategy is wrapped up in just one policy. You get protection from it. Compared to your 401k, do you know you cannot just go into your 401k and just withdraw money from it? You will get penalized. So if you're not 59 and a half, you can't have access to your 401k without penalty. Now, can you take retirement from this index universe? Guess what? You could do it. And it's not going to trigger taxes. Now, can I use it to save for college for my kid? You can do that as well. And it's flexible. What does that mean? It's flexible in the sense that today, compared to a 529 college fund, I'm not denigrating the 529 college fund. I'm just saying, if it's a 529 college fund, you put it aside. If your son decides that, Daddy, I don't want to do fire, I don't want to go to college, it's usually very difficult to go to that fund and say, my son doesn't want to go to school. He wants to be something. He wants to set up a business. Can I get my 529 college fund back? I don't think you can get it. It's set up purposely for what? For college. Now, with an IUL, if your son says, you know what, I want to set up a company, I'm not interested in going to college, I need some seed money to start. This is flexible, because you could go in and say, okay, I'm not spending that money on college for my son anymore. He's not interested in it. I'm going to give it to him as seed money for the company he wants to set up. And that's an IUL. It's flexible. And what else? Savings. Compared to you putting your money in Wells Fargo on a flight line debt and arrival investment, fixed investment, you put in an IUL and it's compounding from 6 to 12%, and your money is safe. How do I know that? Because in the last financial meltdown, there is a bank called Wachovia Bank. Wachovia. I was in the banking industry a couple of years back, and I know Wachovia Bank was one of the strongest banks in the world. But when the financial meltdown happened, Wachovia Bank disappeared. But guess what didn't disappear? Insurance companies did not. Because why? Because they are highly liquid. They have enough funds. So when you put your money aside in an IUL in savings that's giving you 6 to 12%, your money is safe. Your money is what? Is safe. Now, with all this benefit, the question I'll ask myself, why are you still putting the money in the savings account? Why are you still, looking for different strategies that are out there that usually they disappoint? In the 401k, like I explained to you, you can't predict what Biden is going to do with taxes. Also, it is guaranteed, it's a tax later investment, that when you get to 65, they're going to take 40% out of that money. But what if you could actually do something else? If you could make a paradigm shift and shift away from everything you've been coached and been taught before and do something different and create a clear-cut path, a roadmap for you to be financially free. And that financial freedom starts with what? That debt benefit portion that you are able to pass on to the next generation, that you are able to set your family free, that if anything were to happen to you, you know that your family is safe and secure. You know they don't have to go beg for bread another day. And what is going to happen is that seed money they need to become the next Amazon, to become the next Jeff Bezos, to become Elon Musk, is already wrapped up in this. Now, I'm going to leave room for questions because I've said a lot. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you have any question, please let me know. But I believe that if you're looking for something different, if you're looking for where to start, this is a place to start. And guess what? You're going to have to start with $10,000. You can start where you are right now with a seed. And that seed in it contains what is going to liberate you, what is going to create the generational wealth. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was an awesome presentation. And I love that we have, the time is so compressed. The time is so compressed. I see questions coming in, but because of our time, we might not be able to take them all. But please drop them. Please drop them in the chat so we can get it across to the speaker. So I need to ask you, I love that you talked about us not having time, because the thing is, especially for first generation immigrants, when you come here, right, you have to play catch up, which is what we spoke about day one. You're basically like, okay, how does this work? How does this work? And in the middle of all of that, how does this work? You're trying to also fend for yourself. You're trying to pay bills. So it's a lot happening at once. And so you cannot do it by yourself. You cannot just piggyback based on what your uncle did in 1960 when he came. You know, things are changing. A lot of information is hidden from us, and we have to search. So today, what we basically did was bring someone who has insight on information like that, and he has spoken to us for the good part of an hour. Okay, so I see one question. We're going to take one question, and we're going to take the next session. So we've entered into the chat how you can reach him. His email is in there, his IG handle is in there, and his phone number is in there. Let me see the question. One question is, what are your thoughts on opening a Roth IRA and investing in index funds instead of getting life insurance? I heard that investing in an index fund gives you the gains of the market, but since the investment is diversified, you're lowering your risk of your gains going down. And the Roth IRA is a tax advantage retirement account, so we save money there in the long run. So I guess the question is, what are your thoughts on the Roth IRA, of opening a Roth IRA and investing in index funds instead of getting a life insurance?
I like that question. And I like the fact that before that question, something you said was, we don't have time. And what does that mean? Why do you have to combine so many strategies to get to that place? And that's my own, it's just that you just mentioned you want to combine a Roth IRA with an index fund in the stock market and probably combine it with something else. And I want you to understand this. And this is the most important piece. Please do not leave here without taking this away. The reason we're talking about this today is not about yourself. And that life insurance component is the most important thing that I want you to take away. Because if I came into the US and saw my dad passed me $100,000, I know where I'd be. I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be thinking about different ideas. And the only way you can do it, think about it. And all I'm saying in that question is, if I work so hard and I put my money in a Roth IRA and I do that and I put it in an index and I combine that strategy and I combine this strategy, it sounds like you're the one who is working the magic. But please, let's do something let's try to do something different. And I said a paradigm shift. Let's shift our mind, a mindset from you have to be the one to do it. And let's shift it from me doing it to taking advantage of what I call the principle of leverage. Leverage. And that's the most important thing. With an IUL, you have you've taken care of the future needs of your family. In the sense that if anything happens to you, immediately you sign up that policy that you have money you want to put in an IRA, in an index, funds from the wealth managers. You put that money in just an IUL, 500K coverage for your family. The index strategy is built in it. The IRA strategy is built in it. So for the price of one, you're probably getting 10. With an IUL, you can take a loan. Meaning the money you're putting inside accumulates, it's called cumulative gain, right? Accumulates to a point where it builds what is called a cash value. Now, I want to do business. I don't want to go to a bank to be charged 22%. What do? Go into your life insurance policy. It is a bank. They call it a family bank. Go there and take a loan against what you have built as cash value. Do your investment. Guess what? You don't even need to pay back. Meaning you are eating your cake and having it at the same time. So my take on this is very simple. We don't have the time. We are playing catch up. You cannot combine many strategies because what you're going to do is while you're in the office, you're flipping your IRA account to check how it's doing. You're checking your index fund strategy. You're checking. No, your work is your work. Focus on the work because you are the cow who's bringing the golden egg. So that's where you want to focus on that. You're the one laying the golden geese. You can't afford to be distracted because all that distraction is going to impede on your performance at work. But when you put in an IUL takes care of everything. Because one, your future is, your family is protected. And not only protected, you have set a roadmap so that never, even if you exit this world, they will have to beg for bread. And I think like a scripture says, a good man leaves what? Wealth, inheritance. Inheritance for his children's children. And I believe there are so many good men here on this platform. And if there's anything you want to start.
And women.
And women and good men. If there and anything you want to start with is to make sure whatever you're doing, whatever strategy you put in place, you're also incorporating the future of your family. And there's only one way to do that is to combine all the strategy in an insurance policy that allows you to do all these different things you wanted to do before in one fell swoop. Thank you.
Wow. Okay, so if you applause, if you are watching with us, guys, we cannot take any more questions, but he's you can reach him. The information is in the chat. I'm going to say it now, but it's also in the chat. His IG handle is at Henry Daffy. His email is shei.dapherede@gmail.com. And his phone number, well, it's in the chat. So spelling the last name, it's easy to make a mistake. So please look in the chat so you don't get it wrong. But you can reach out to him. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm getting comments saying, "Oh my God, I didn't know he was a professor." I'm like, okay. Because you dropped such a wealth of information in the space of 45 minutes. But what I've gained and why I think we should all find a way to reach out to him, email, Instagram, if you have to call, is because, as I was saying, we are playing catch up here and there is no time. Remember that for those of us who already have families, you have a limited space to also spend time with your family. Before you know, your children are grown and they're gone. They're doing their own thing. We don't want them in therapy sessions saying, "Oh my God, my parents didn't have time for me. They didn't take care of me because of that." We can change that way things happen. We can also enjoy our lives while we're still young and here. So please, let's take action. This is a call to action for everyone, including me. This is a call to action for all of us. Thank you so much, Shei Dapherede. Thank you so much, husband.
Pleasure.
Thank you for coming on today. And then we are going to take a break, a 5-minute break before our next session. But I want you to know, please don't go anywhere, because our next session, we're talking about branding for our unique stories. The thing with our stories as immigrants is sometimes they are so different. There's so many bumps in the road that when we see the popular people, when we see their stories, our story doesn't look like their own. So we start cutting off pieces of our story, trying to fit into that box that they've created. But our next speaker, she shows us how We don't have to do that. You have a story. Your story is treasure. This treasure. It is not trash. Don't throw it away. You might have lived in 4 countries, but in those 4 countries, you did different things, right? You did different. You achieved different things that all make up who you are today. There is nothing like you're starting over. You have experience. You can brand your experience. You can create a personal brand for yourself. You can create a business brand for yourself. So please stay on. All right, we're going to take a break right now. business. She's a mom of a child with complex medical and developmental needs. She believes in role modeling, imperfect, authentic leadership. She is also the founder of the Easy Breezy Life, the host of a podcast called A Day in the Life of the Alpha Woman. And she is also the CEO of Issata Inc., which is SBE and MWBE certified. She is pursuing her doctorate in education at Rutgers University. So shout out to her because she's about to add doctor to all of this to all of this accolades. So I'm bringing her on. Issata, just take the stage. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up just so I know. Pardon me. This morning we are doing double duty. Believe it or not, while this session is happening, I also have a graduate school session that I am stepping out of so I can be here today. Thank you so much, Biodun, for the privilege to be part of the ImmiGreat Life and all of the amazing work that you have been doing. It has been my distinct pleasure to watch your brand evolve and to see this day where there have been so many amazing speakers for the past 2 days. I have learned so much, even just with what Oluwaseyi Dapherede shared. I learned so much in that time, and I am just excited to see what comes next for this brand and for every person who joined today, right? It's so important to do the follow-up. So I want to take some time to start first with sharing a little bit about my story, right? Because if you go on my LinkedIn, if you look me up, Issata Oluwadare, you're going to see like all these accolades, certificates, titles, so on and so forth. But people very rarely see the starting point. And I want to say that I started with building my own personal brand in the summer of 2018 when my son transitioned at home from spending 11 months in the hospital. My son, Mighty Manny, which you're going to hear about in the presentation, spent 11 months, was a surviving twin at 23 weeks. We lost his sister at 29 weeks, and Emmanuel had about 13 surgeries, 29 blood transfusions, and came home with over 29 diagnoses. And in that moment, I have to share this testimony because I'm a God girl. And a lot of what I do is God gets the glory only because he has carried us thus far and sent us marvelous people on the way to really support the vision that he has for my life, my son's life, and even for your life. And so when I felt the nudge to go, it was the most inopportune time of my life. It felt like I was in tragedy. Our business was struggling because so many things happen when you can't manage your business and give it your undivided attention because a loved one is sick. God sustained us through all of those things. And in the midst of that said, go. I have to tell you that because so many of us on here are hesitating on the go because we're looking around and we're afraid. We're afraid of who's judging us. We're afraid of who doesn't think we don't have the gift. We're afraid of the season we're in. We're hoping that things will slow down. And you know what I realized? That vision to go, I got 5 years prior, and I kept waiting for the right time. I knew in that moment in 2018 that if I didn't start, I would never do it because my life would only get more complicated from there on out. So the singles, people who are married, you don't have kids, start now. Start now. And I'm saying this because we're an African immigrant community where our life is centered around having babies, and getting married. And let me tell you something, you're going to have the babies and get married. And if you've done nothing, that will be all she wrote. And we live here in the United States, not on a farm. So you having a boatload of kids is really not what's going to secure your future. That is a mindset that we have to break out. There are people who don't have children, who are not married, who have left incredible legacies, have blessed children, have adopted many children. So we have to break out of this mindset that success looks like marriage, kids, that's it. And until I get those, I can't pursue anything else. Until I get those, I can't launch my business. Until I get those, I can't buy a house. I can't own property. I can't be a woman or a man of distinction. Yes, you can. And whatever your circumstance looks like today, I want to tell you that everything you're about to see that has been built and done started with 15 minutes a day. No magic time, no magic wand, no team, 15 minutes. Okay, let's get right into it. If I can get to share my screen here. Give me a moment, everyone.
Okay, so you heard while she's getting it. You heard everything that she just shared. Mind blowing. I want to see the emojis in the chat. Well, what do you think about what she just shared? I've heard it before, but every time I hear it, I'm always like, ooh. Let's see the emojis.
Just waiting for the load. There you go. All right. So we are talking about branding your unique story today. And I'm sharing about this because I think it's important to establish, like, who are you even talking to? Why is this woman talking about branding? I am a person who believes in credentials and credibility. I don't want to hear what you got to say until you tell me why I need to listen to you. It is not because I'm snobby. It's because I'm an academic, right? By day, I serve as a dean. And as such, I need receipts. I need evidence. It is just the way that you are trained when you are an academic. And so what I like to say with the work that we do at Issata O Inc. is that access to information and being able to properly apply that information has been the number one advantage for me. When Shay was talking earlier and he said, what do you have in your hand? When I started Issata O Inc. and the Easy Breezy Life, I didn't have anything in my hand, right? Or at least I didn't. No monetary things in my hand, because we were trying to figure out how to save our business, provide for our son. So many things were happening. But what I had was the access to the information and the skills to build a website, the skill of writing, the skill of speaking, all skills that I had acquired in places and positions of service. I have to say that because so many times we're so ambitious, we don't want to do anything if we're not getting money for it right away. But I want to say that every skill and talent that I used to build this were skills that I built in church by being part of the media team, at work by people assigning tasks to me that I didn't feel like was part of my job, but I did it anyway. Allowing people to push me into being a public speaker. Believe it or not, you might not believe me today, but I don't actually like talking to people all that much. I don't like being around people all that much. It is a skill that I developed over time by allowing God to push me into service. So you might be listening to me today and being like, this woman is talking about branding. She is speaking English that I probably will never speak. And the truth of the matter is, you don't know who you are. You don't know what's on the inside of you like God does. And I believe that if you're here today, it is because there is something in you that qualifies you to step into the branding and of your story and sharing it with the world for maximum impact. So my experience has been 15 years of building departments, building business alongside my husband, taking organizations apart, putting them together again, building them from the ground up to be sustainable examples of success. Right? It is one thing to build something. It is another thing to build something that becomes a national model, something that goes number one, something that receives recognition. Excellence goes behind that. Consistency goes behind that. A lot of connections and relationships go behind that. So trust that today, as I give you the feedback and advice, our work has been featured on Fox, on Yahoo, on CBS, on Mogul, which is an international platform that reaches millions across the world in business, working with the likes of Inc., Elle, Forbes. And it all started in my bedroom, right? And it continues to run in our bedroom. So why do you need a brand? Why do you what do you mean branding my story, right? I don't want to be an IG influencer. I'm not trying to do TikTok dances, because that's what I thought when I first heard about branding and God was telling me to step out. I was getting so much advice from all different kinds of places where people were telling me that, you got to dance, you got to do this, you have to be entertaining. I'm like, I'm not that. Like, I'm not going to dance for you. I'm not going to entertain for you. I will give you the facts. I will give you the information, but my personality is generally straightforward. I don't want to pretend to be someone I'm not. But the truth of the matter is, even that is a brand. Being straightforward, being no frills is a brand, right? And in this book by Porter Braswell, who was a Yale grad, who started this organization called Jobwell, where he teaches Black and Latinx professionals who have no intention of being entrepreneurs, how to brand themselves, making themselves more valuable to their organization, leading to promotion, leading to increase, leading to influence outside of the workplace. He talked about the importance of allowing people to see you, because your story will not tell itself. I can tell you that even as a professional, if you choose to do nothing with your brand other than raise your voice, amplify, become a respected voice in your field, that adds to the value of your organization. It adds to the value that your supervisor sees in you, and they understand that you are someone who is choosing to be part of their organization, but you can go anywhere else and be amazing. The employee who knows their worth, the employee who knows that they can rock it out in any organization, is of different value and differently esteemed than a person who is solely depending on their employer to appreciate them, to validate them, to tell their story, so on and so forth. So we're using this story, but it's so important that when we tell our story that we set the intention. The brands that I choose to work with in particular in my storytelling is for the intent to impact for positive change. There are some people you will see on social media, it's about accolades, it's about the likes, it's about approval. It is not about that. We are now building brands to become altars unto ourselves. We are now building brands to become people who are worshiped by our social group. We are building brands to be intentional about leaving our stamp and our impact in the lives of others so that somebody else can see your story and said, if they did it, I can do it. If they overcame, I can overcome, right? We're being God's hands and feet by building these brands. Intention is so important. This brand allows you to have influence, adaptability, meaning you can pivot in your career at any point if you need to. It sets the narrative on your behalf as opposed to people speculating and telling your story for you, because the story will always be told. People will always talk. But the question is, did you take charge of your narrative? Right? The Bible says something, no weapon formed against us shall prosper, and every tongue that rises up against us we shall condemn. We're not talking about walking around shouting, I condemn the tongues, I condemn the tongues. When you take advantage and you take control of your narrative and you have decided, I have a brand, I'm going to live it up and be who I am everywhere, you are that is your response. The evidence, the results becomes the response. So the brand in essence is you taking control of your identity. And I want to talk about someone who really did a great job doing this. And, we may feel however we want, but what we saw from the Trump presidency was someone who had a great control of their brand. He was in front of whatever the news had to say, had a rebuttal to the point where they had to shut down his social media accounts. But one thing that you cannot deny is that the Trump administration had control and full faculty and authority of their brand, and in many ways continues to do so. So what I want to say is, when you build that brand, you build it for good, right? You build it for social impact. You build it for profitability, because you can be one of those entrepreneurs who does good and also makes money. They exist. If you still don't think you need a brand at this point, understand that the work that you do will not sell itself. So many times we're doing fake humble. And what is fake humble? Because we're really good at this in the African community. We see people, we're like, oh no, I don't want to bow down. I don't want anyone to know who I am. First of all, it depends on the setting that we're in, right? If I'm going to support a friend, they're going through a hard time, that's not the time to start rambling off my credentials. But if I am walking into a room where I'm expecting a promotion, I'm expecting a business deal, you would better believe that I have crafted an elevator pitch for that specific room. You'd better believe that I have studied who is going to be in this room, what are their interests, and how do I make my brand, my story, what I am selling, appealing to them. Everybody does not want all of you. I have to say that on here. When people are like, if you love me, you gotta love all of me. No, nobody wants all of you. Okay, very few people do. If you're married, you have a partner, maybe they do. But if you have healthy boundaries, they probably don't want all of you either. Only Jesus wants all of you. So that means that when we're building a brand, we have to be intentional about the audience and people on the other side and learn to communicate in a language that they understand. That looks different. If you see me in a room, I live in Newark, New Jersey. If you see me in a room with other Newark residents, my tone is different. The words that I use are different. If you see me at the Honors College, I'm communicating a certain kind of way. If you see me with my friends who are all Nigerian, I'm communicating a certain kind of way. It is because the intent of communicating the brand is for the hearer, not you. It is not to impose who you believe you should be, rather to communicate the solution to a problem that the person on the receiving end has. So if your brand is not solving a problem for the person you are communicating with, it just sounds like boasting. Very important. The brand is for serving. The brand is for solving issues. A good example of that is in the Bible. Daniel stood before a king. Esther stood before a king. Joseph stood before kings. Do you think they stood before a king because they talked about how fantastic they were? Or they got there because they were an answer to a problem? The king needed a wife. Esther was cute and humble. That's how she got there, because she listened on the way. Joseph was smart and knew how to manage. That's how he got there. He answered a problem. Okay. Daniel looked good, was smart, gifted in all wisdom, and could serve. That's how he got there. The brands, your brand, needs to be solving a problem for the person you are talking to. If it is not solving the problem, you are just a sounding gong. So, who are some of the people? I've had the privilege of working with some amazing, incredible people, and I want to show you how you just take something simple, one aspect of your life, and can transform that into a story. So, I'm going to spotlight a few of the people who we have on here who seem like regular, everyday people. Aisha was someone who came to Issata O, and she was an administrator at a university in Atlanta, Clark, Atlanta. And she said, you know what? I have a family member who has autism. I've been trying to get this book published. I have spent thousands and thousands of dollars. People are not executing. She goes, I need to get this book out into the marketplace. We talked with her, but before putting the book out, we said, we're not just going to put a book out and say, oh, drop the book. It has no rhyme, no rhyme, no reason. People don't know how to get in contact with you. You're not turning this into multiple streams of income. Talk to me about the book. Then I found out that she worked with foundations on autism. She did all of these different works that really qualified her. And in fact, as an educator, she had won awards for her service. She was involved with so many different community service aspects of this book. So it wasn't just a book about her nephew. It was actually her life purpose. And that was why she felt drawn to do this book. So we worked on her brand, got her to do a photo shoot, created the 3 different streams of income, which included merchandise, the book, and her speaking engagements. And just so you know, when I work with people to develop brands, it's a minimum of 3. A minimum of 3 streams of income. Some of them must be passive, some of them must be active, because we can't be working you to the ground as you develop this brand. So we helped her work with the descriptors, get in front of the right audience. And guess what? When her book launched, it went #1. No major publisher. Authenticity, thoughtfulness, and proper branding makes a difference. Let's talk about Vanessa, one of my favorites, and someone I know personally. Vanessa came to us. She was a successful real estate broker, but wanted to take her business to the next level and make some money independently outside of what she was making with her agency. Took Vanessa, gave her a photo shoot, asked her, what are your streams of income? What are you really good at? She goes, well, I am the wife of a military person, and I'm really great at doing military relocations. I said, great, that's a specialty. Helping families of the military relocate. They want to know someone understands that stress. Then she says, oh, when I bought my first house, I was a single mom. I had to work from the ground up. I had to use, my savings from my 401k to do it. Okay, that means that you're specializing in single mothers. You're also specializing in people who may not be coming from really high income brackets, but you can teach them the pathway on becoming a homeowner. And she says that, oh yeah, I have really great connections. I know every realtor. I know every loan officer. I know the right one to give you that's going to make sure that you close, and I am good at the close. So those became her additional streams of income in addition to what she was doing as a broker. And after we could develop her website, she had a record-breaking year. She has won silver and the gold award working with Century 21, and her brand helped to elevate her credibility so that her clients know you're not just working with a realtor. You are working with a person who was a single mom and bought a home. You are working with someone who is who understands what it means to have a blended military family and to relocate that family. They wanted the human being, and her not being afraid to step out and share that part of her story is what took her from being a fantastic broker already to being a multi-million-dollar producing, award-winning, significant #1 in her area. Next, we want to talk about my favorite client. I don't do a presentation without talking about my very own son. As I mentioned to you in the beginning, my son, Mighty Manny, came into the world at 23 weeks and 2 days, was a surviving twin, and came home with so many overwhelming stories. And one of the things I noticed in the hospital was that when we would Google on YouTube or anywhere and look for encouraging stories, I could not find anything. It was so overwhelming. It was so discouraging. But I've always been the kind of person that said that if I go through something, none of my experiences are ever in vain. None of them. And that is really what the brand that we built, the Easy Breezy Life, was about. Saying that my life may not have felt easy, but with everything that we have gone through as a collective, as women, we can make somebody else's life easy. And just because you struggle doesn't mean somebody else has to struggle. I think it's a really sick kind of person that says, because I went through a hard time and struggled to build this, I'm just going to watch other people struggle. That's a special kind of venom, right? And so Mighty Manny was about inspiring hope. It was a coloring book and an actual picture book. It also came with a podcast, so that people could go on that podcast and feel inspired by the content. And so by branding Manny's story, building it on the foundation of Manny's Village, which is our nonprofit, which we use to fundraise and to give to community organizations that are helping these children, that are helping these families, we experience the marvelous help and grace of God in that journey. And I just could not imagine if God did not show up for us by being the hands and feet through people the way that he did in that journey, how my family would have gotten through it. I wanted to make sure that this book, Mighty Manny, would, through Manny's Village, become the nonprofit that helped to make the road easier for other families. It was a way of paying it forward. The book came out #1. It became a top 10 bestseller on its Amazon category, and it has been featured in over 500 news outlets, including CBS, Yahoo, and The Mighty. And, and it has also helped us to begin to build the nest egg for Manny's future, which goes back to what we were talking about in the session prior, right? Leaving an inheritance, knowing that no matter what the situation looks like, your children should not be begging for bread. This project was about ensuring that Manny's life would have a legacy, it would have a meaning, but more importantly, it would be a blessing to others. And so, if Emmanuel, who spent 11 months in the hospital, to date, my son is nonverbal, to date, my son doesn't walk, and he is already changing and impacting lives, just being himself. Imagine how much more you can do and who you can be with the narrative and the skill sets and the ability that you have. We all have a story. We all have an impact to make. We all have a mark to leave in this world. The last thing that I want for anyone in my sphere of influence, anyone in my circle, is for them to leave and they haven't made their mark. You made money, you bought property, you bought houses, you bought Gucci bags, but you did not leave a mark that will bless somebody else's life. So how do we do that? How do we even start, right? Because we're in a world where people can build a complete persona that is not them online, nowhere near the reality of who they are. And as I learn more about influencers and help people build their influence, I am just amazed about how many ways you can fashion an identity that is not yours at all and get people on Instagram to believe it and buy into it. We know them. We know the influencers who have gone on there and established a fake false identity, and at some point it all comes crashing down. The important thing to do, as I mentioned with setting the intention, is decide who you're going to be and stick with it. Who am I? What am I about? What am I not about? Because in doing so, you, in a way, begin to separate yourself from the pack, right? We don't want to be lukewarm. We don't want people to be like, oh, they are right. They're okay. They're not okay. We don't want that. We want people to have a definite opinion. And here's the thing with having people have a definite opinion. People will definitely love you. People will definitely not like you. But be okay with the definites. I'm personally at a place within my brand, within my story, that I want you to have a strong feeling. Let that strong feeling be in or out. But please don't let it be on the fence, because no one can do anything with the fence riding. So decide who you are. Stick with it. What's your communication style? Right? A lot of people, for example, an influencer who I admire for her tenacity is Monique Parker. You love her today, you hate her tomorrow. She's coming back. She's doing another dance routine. She's still calling you the babies. And yes, she's going to mention the bonnet again. You don't have to take her bonnet feedback if you don't want it. But if you choose to follow Monique, she's going to tell you about how you show up at the supermarket. This is who she is. She has made a decision. She has decided to put her open marriage at the forefront, and she's sticking with the narrative. So who are you? Stick with it. Don't be flip-floppy. Establish a consistent web presence. Meaning, if you go on Instagram, if you Google my name, if you go on LinkedIn, it is clear. The messaging is clear. Who I am is clear. The articles all speak to the same thing. And also getting in front of the right audience. My Instagram audience doesn't want to hear what the LinkedIn audience is reading. The millennial Facebook audience wants a little bit of different kind of depth than the IG audience. So you have to study these different social media platforms and use them accordingly. There is some content that is appropriate for Instagram that would get you a real, that's really risque on LinkedIn, right? Only recently are we seeing TikTok dances on LinkedIn. We're at millennials and Gen Z, we're trying to push the envelope. But in general, LinkedIn is going to be where you find your professionals and organizations with the money. So you have to put results, you have to put wins, you have to put credentials. It has to be clear what the brand is offering and how it solves the problems for those business organizations, for people who are seeking work, for people who are seeking employees. It's a great place to network, to get speaking engagements. Facebook is a different crowd. People like to build stronger relationships on there. So you create a Facebook group, you share content, you share information, you do a little bit more storytelling. Instagram, you know that merchandise is probably going to sell best on Instagram. It is designed to be quick, to focus on high visuals, and that is generally the content that sells the most. Things that are based on visual appeal on Instagram. So knowing the audience you're talking to and what language and how you need to modify it on each of those places are important for establishing a consistent web presence and also getting in front of the right people. And again, communicating the brand that solves their problem, not boast about how great you are. So if I'm on LinkedIn, my issues are probably business and organization related, and how to navigate the corporate world and all of that. I need to communicate that. If I'm on Facebook, I'm probably looking for deeper community. I need to communicate that with the brand, that I can give you deeper community. If I'm on IG, they trying to look cute and make sure that it's correct. You got to communicate that for whatever it is that you're selling. People need images. People need to see the merchandise, right? Even if that merchandise is a service. The other thing is be consistent. You're going to feel uncomfortable. Let me tell you something. When I started, at some point, people were like, oh my gosh, we get it. You're always sharing something. Yes, yes. But no one's going to pay me to build their brand unless they know that I can consistently build my own brand. No one's going to trust me with their success if I cannot demonstrate my success. So you're an event planner, show the successes, girl. Keep reposting it over and over again. You're an author, I need to see excerpts of your book. What problem are you solving with the book again? Write my book. And then when I come next week, you need to tell me again, buy my book. And the week after that, I need to hear, buy my book. Until when they hear your name, they mention the title of the book. If they're not doing that, you haven't gotten on their nerves, you haven't communicated it. Some people are going to be annoyed, but this goes back to decide who you are and stick with it. There are some people who are going to love and need the message that you have. Those are who you want. Those are who you want. So just know that if people can build a whole following on just making slime on YouTube, and somebody is for it, there's a whole following on watching pimples pop. That's it. And someone's watching. I was watching it on Snapchat last week. There is room for you. Association matters, right? You need to associate with people who are successful in the realm of the work that you are trying to do. I am not talking about clout chasing, brown nosing, and being a groupie. This is incredibly important. But you have to move with the crowd that is sharing your mindset, just like we're doing this morning. We're all coming in this morning because we want to learn, what is this ImmiGreat mindset? How can I adapt it and make it work for me, right? This is association. Associate with those who are moving in the direction you want to move to, not to be a user, but because peer pressure works at any point and any juncture of our lives. It's one of those things we really truly never overcome, right? Walk with the wise and you will become the wise. Keep the company of fools and folly is at the other side. This is the work. It's who you choose to spend your time with. And one of the things I became super intentional about is saying, I love everybody, but just like Jesus, I'm not hanging out with everyone. And I'm definitely not taking everyone into the Garden of Gethsemane or into the moments of my life that are pivotal moments. Establishing your brand is kind of like that garden moment. Everybody doesn't see the vision, and you have to protect that vision or that baby with your life so that it can come to fruition. And so choose who you're going to share this vision with wisely. Can they help you? Can they encourage you? Can they give you a tip or a leg up? Can they work with you to build it? If they're not part of the planning, the purpose, and the impact, you're really not part of this brand. You don't have room for passengers on this plane. Everybody's got to be a co-pilot. The next thing is produce, girl. A young man, young woman, everyone who's listening, produce. I hit a place in developing the Easy Breezy Life and developing Silk where I just kept producing. It was not about process. It was about learning process, but it was more about the practice of producing, learning what was the best marketing strategy, what did I do right, what did I do wrong, what worked, and also getting education and how to properly produce. So this is something you have to invest in, just like you invested in your education. You're not just going to go on there, randomly start posting hashtags and think, oh, that's how Tabitha became a global success. No, when you listen to people, even someone who was like a wide known internet comedian like Kev on Stage, he will tell you that he did like 100 episodes without a single person watching. There is process in this. There is a building that goes into this. There is education. There is sacrifice. There is discipline that goes into producing and establishing the credibility to really turn the story into profit. So I don't want you to think that you're going to leave here today, publish a book, and bam, I'm an overnight success. Before you publish, establish the identity, establish the credibility, determine the niche before you go out there and just start putting things out. So many people decide to start a business, and the first place they start is an Instagram page. Like, yup, now I got a business. That's not where I started my brands. My brands always started with the infrastructure and the system, right? If the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Social media was the last arm of establishing any of the work that I did. Because social media is where I went to share the wins. Social media is where I went to draw people in. Social media is where I went to go share the work. But the work was built before the IG page. The other thing you want to do once you establish this brand is create multiple streams of income. I can tell you that right now, the storytelling arm of the work that I do, which is on the Easy Breezy Life, has at minimum 6 streams of passive income. Passive. This means I did the work once and I watched the royalties come in. Is it fully doing zero work? No, because I still have to promote the items. But these items will live forever and they will continue to produce revenue for the business, for me, be profitable, and also change lives. What are some ways that you can do that? You can start a podcast. Anchor has made podcasting easy for everybody. You can do it on your phone. You do not need to be a genius. This does not need to be a high-level Spotify podcast when you start out. You just need to start. But the podcasting with every listen brings in revenue. I'm also an Amazon influencer. People ask me all the time, oh, where'd you buy this? Where you buy that? When I share on my website, on the blog post where I bought it, somebody clicks it, I get paid for that. That's passive income. It lives on the website. I'm also a speaker, which is a little more active, right? But I try to focus on 4 or 5 key topical areas so that I'm not redesigning content every time I go out to speak. I'm just shifting that content for the audience. So speaking also brings in income from a story. I'm a published author. I have books that have gone number one. I have journals. I have different kinds of strategies for different people, right? So there's Mighty Manny, there's Easy Breezy Life journals, there's books for grieving mothers, something different for the different audiences that I speak to. There I have an ebook on leadership for when I go and speak about leadership. Each audience gets something to walk away with that is a passive income source. Merchandising, especially now with drop shipping and websites like Printful, Printify, Shopify, you need like $29 to get started and a Canva account. $29 a month and a Canva account will help you start your t-shirt business, your coffee mug business, or whatever other merchandising business you want to start. That's it. That's the capital. And then finally, events, right? Bringing people together, educating people, saying, $10, come to this seminar and I'm going to teach you how I did it. So I say this to say, when we say, what do you have in your hand, in your story, in your narrative are multiple streams of income. But it never turns into gold if you keep it hidden. It never turns into gold if you're afraid of being judged. It never gets it turned into gold if you hold on to immigrant mindsets of stigma. Imagine if I said, I don't want anyone to know my child has special needs. I said, well, you better know, because if you hire me and I need to take off for him, I'm taking off. And guess what? We live in the United States. There are many laws that protect my child and my ability to be able to care for him. And I'm going to leverage every single one of those to ensure that my status and my child's status, or the condition that we're dealing with, does not become the hindrance or something that people use against us. And so with the benefit that we have in the United States, by God's grace, there's peace, it's an organized society, is that you can choose to lay down the stigma, but you have to choose it. You have to choose who you associate with. You have to choose how you look at your situation. You have to choose why you're sharing the story, right? If I was a person who was just sharing the story and saying, oh, I want everybody to feel bad for me and my son, that is not a good reason to share the story. I'm sorry, right? To garner attention, to garner sympathy is not a good reason to share the story. Be very intentional with the stories you share, with the intent to honor, to serve, and to be the answer to someone else's problem. All right. I'm open for questions.
Wow. That was intense. And that was full of gems. So if you're watching, right, just drop in the chat something that stuck with you. Just something in your head from what you just listened to. Issata, thank you so much for coming on. You have outlined it so clearly. It's like this is a call to action. If this is something that you know that has been on your heart, you know that you have purpose, then there is no way you're not going to have to create a brand. Because like she said, people will tell your stories. If you don't tell them yourself, people will tell your stories. And that is the truth. We were raised on stories. Everything that we have in our minds right now comes from someone telling a story. We come from the motherland, many of us. The motherland got such a bad rep because the people telling the stories had something to gain from not telling the whole story. Like Chimamanda would say, there's the danger of a single story. Imagine if that story is coming from someone else, not you. And Issata today has explained so many reasons why. And I love that she brought Manny back. It doesn't get better than that. Like, if Manny, as he is going to receive his healing. That is my belief. Amen. But if Manny, as he is right now, already has a brand and is touching other children and touching other parents, because remember what she said, she was looking for encouraging literature, right, around children with special needs, and she couldn't find it. She said, okay. And because she served something that people have been looking for years, but nobody thought, since I cannot find it, let me put it up. Because of that, she became an Amazon bestseller. She had Sparkling Sophia, which is about Manny's twin who passed away. And so that also will speak to people who have lost children, people, and that is just something that in our community we are taught most of the time to be quiet about, oh, don't worry, don't say anything, don't let people laugh at you. Nah, nah, this is not the time for that. Okay, I just know that every single one of us is carrying, along with our purpose, we're carrying somebody else's deliverance.
Amen.
When we deliver, we encourage somebody else to deliver. I don't mean copy, because some people just straight up copy. I don't mean that. Everyone has their own angle. So I'm going to ask you one question. What would you say to someone who says, I've tried to build a brand? In fact, I've done it for years, but it didn't work. So they're listening to you and they're like, but I've done this before. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on this, I'm on that, and I still cannot hit it. What would be your...
What I would say is that everybody needs a mentor. You know what's funny? I do business and branding coaching. I also have a business coach. I also have mentors that I consult with. I also have classes that I take on a weekly basis to be like, how am I doing this? Am I doing it right? Can I do it better? What am I missing? And so we don't want you to idly pluck away. If this is something you really believe in, you really want to build, just like you invested in your education to get you the job, just like you invested in the job in a home to own it, you have to invest in this skill, right? And some great places to go and get courses that will teach you about this is Udemy, UDEMY, because they will offer a lot of branding and content courses for less. Now, when you go on there, it says $2.99, but if you sign up for their listserv, one day they're going to send you something and say, oh, just for today is $15. That's the day you buy 10 courses and make sure that you complete all of them. And what I realize is like, people will call this like the universe. It's not the universe. It's really just smartphones listening into our conversations. The more you start to do it, on my Instagram feed, I get educational resources all the time for free. And I always sign up for it. And I don't care. Is it $1 course? Oh, I'm buying it. Because in that $1 course, it might be one piece of nugget of information that makes me $100. The biggest thing that you have to become is a learner. You don't want to undermine or assume that any information that's coming across is not relevant for you. Some of the information that I've learned came from people who were not even in the same industry as me. But I was interested in their process. I was interested in their mechanism. I was interested in their discipline, their consistency. And that was what I used, right? So don't just learn and consume and not apply, because then, we're just wasting time and money. And I did that for years too, right? In the 5 years I was supposed to be launching this, I consumed information and never put any of it into practice. But you have to learn, you have to apply, you have to learn what sink or swim. And yes, we all need encouragement. We all need a coach. We all need a mentor. And it will save you time and money and shave years off of your success path.
Thank you so much, Issata. So we started the day with Oluwaseyi Dapherede, the financial advisor. He spoke about money, intergenerational wealth, mistakes we might be making with money. Now we're speaking with Issata. She has talked to us about building brands and why we need to even build a brand for ourselves. If you're someone and you've been thinking, what do I even have to share? That means you're not even sure, right? Maybe because you've always been told to support other people, to praise other people, but you've never really even praised yourself. And I don't mean that like in a vain way, but have you looked at yourself and thought, what is it that I'm even good at? What is it that I've achieved? Have you looked back to look at what you've achieved? If you know that that is not your thing, you're not really good at that, I would say just reach out to Issata. If you've been struggling for years and it hasn't happened, why? Let's stop the struggle and just reach out to Issata. Okay. So thank you so much, Issata. I love you. I called you 2 days ago, remember? And I said, oh, okay. Remember that thing that you did and you talked about my book and you shared my book on Facebook and you did this whole thing for 1 month. Okay, I just got my check. Remember?
Royalty
I told you that 2 days ago. Yeah, and she just started laughing because she didn't do it with that intention. We didn't talk about branding when that happened. It was just she just called me. She said, "Biodun, I want to do your book on something, something, something." I'm like, okay. And that was it, right? And of course, the book is Lead Me Past the Slides. It's on Amazon. And thank you so much, Issata, because of course you've been such an instrumental part of the ImmiGreat Life journey and even the Biodun Dapherede brand. And she's also a sponsor of the conference. So I want to say thank you. Okay, so guys, don't get off. Our next speaker is coming up. She is Dr. OluToyin Ajala. It is so funny because I was talking with my friends. We're saying stuff about our parents and how when we give them like advice, oh mom, you shouldn't eat this, dad, you shouldn't do this. It's like, who are you to tell me that you're just a baby? And of course, if you are an African immigrant or anything close to that, like in the immigrant community, you understand how respect works with us. You understand that, some things are taken as being disrespectful, even though they're just from a place of love. And so I reached out to her. I said, I see that you are a geriatrician and you're a world traveler and you do so many things. This woman does so many things. And I reached out and I said, please, can you give me and my friends some advice about dealing with, the parents and getting them to live healthier lives? She was just like, okay. I was like, okay, God's hand is in this. And that was how I was able to follow up with her until she agreed to come on. So I'm going to do a proper introduction of her, even though it's not yet 12 o'clock. I think that it might take a longer time to do this fireside chat, and so I'm just going to start with her intro. Welcome, Dr. OluToyin Ajala.
Thank you.
Yes,
thanks for having me.
Of course, I love everything that you do. The travel part will come at the end. Okay, so I'm just going to, please give me a moment. I'm going to start off with this introduction. So Dr. OluToyin Ajala is a consultant geriatrician currently working in the UK's NHS, and she worked at the front line of the COVID-19 response as a senior physician since March 2020. She is also the CEO of JBS Medicare Services in Nigeria, a specialist elderly medicine, nursing and therapy service. It is currently the only geriatrician-led private healthcare service in Nigeria. She is the CEO of JBS Elderly Health and Wellbeing Foundation Africa. She graduated from medical school in 1991. Since then, she has acquired a vast amount of experience and expertise in the management of all geriatric medicine conditions, including managing dementia, Parkinson's disease, pressure ulcers, stroke, incontinence, mobility issues, heart disease, diabetes. She's passionate about mentoring younger medical professionals and has participated in several mentoring schemes. She is a notable speaker on dementia prevention and has featured on several radio and international TV programs. In 2017, she was appointed as a visiting consultant geriatrician at the CTA Geriatric Center, UCH, by the Honorable Minister of Health of Nigeria. She is the editor of Healthier Aging Digest, a quarterly e-newsletter on healthy aging. She is the convener of the Healthier Aging Conference, which had its first event in 2019. I know she just actually rounded up on her own conference last week, which was amazing. She has received several awards for her contribution to healthcare in Nigeria and the UK, and was listed among the Who's Who Diaspora Thriving 30 for 2021. She's an avid traveler. She has numerous posts on travel and lifestyle. She has traveled to all seven continents and 58 countries in total. She is married to a consultant obstetrician gynecologist, and she is a mom of 4. I had to put that all out there. Welcome, Dr. Toyin. So nice to have you.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
I'm not in my usual spot for presentations because there's so much going on downstairs. So I've chosen this background. Normally I have the world map behind me, but I've had to, this is the best I can do for now.
We'll take it, Dr. Toyin. We'll take it. We'll take it. So let's start off with your immigrant story. Tell us, how did you, just tell us about, becoming an immigrant and how that happened.
So when I graduated from medical school in 1991, at that point, things were quite tough in Nigeria. It was the Abacha regime, and many of us could see that things were going very, very quickly downhill. So anybody who had the opportunity tried to get a visa to either come to the UK or go to the US to go and carry out their, further studies. Because, I mean, so, with medicine, you don't just graduate as a doctor. You can graduate as a doctor and just start practicing as a doctor after 1 year of house jobs. But really, most of us need to specialize in something.
Okay.
You have to specialize in something so that you can, attract your better life, so to speak. So a very good percentage of my classmates left Nigeria in 1992. I headed to the UK, looking to go to the States. I did not intend to stay in the UK. I don't think many of us intended to stay in the UK. We were all focused on going to the States. And, the UK was just a stopgap. My older brother was here. At that time, my dad was still in Geneva. He was with the WHO. So the UK was just a good stopgap where I could stay, do my exams, pass my America exams, and then leave. I passed my USMLE exams first time, all my exams. And then I met my husband, my boyfriend then. I met him, and he had actually started working here, and he had a British passport. So I did my UK exams, passed, and started working here. And I never left because obviously I got married to him, and from then got married, had children, started, so yeah. So that's how come I'm here in the UK. So I've been here in the UK since 1993. Started working here in 1994. Did all my exams, passed, So working here as an immigrant doctor. My children now, my oldest daughter is 24. My youngest is 16. So they're British, even though anytime we travel anywhere and people ask where we're from, they say Nigeria. But they're British and they don't really intend to live here, I don't think. And I'm half and half. So I'm one of those immigrants. Well, I'm one of those immigrants whose heart never really left Nigeria.
Mm.
I'm not a fully integrated immigrant. In fact, I remember my cousins would come. People used to say I was a Nigerian living in the UK, like I was living in Nigeria, as if I was living in Nigeria. For some reason, I just never really integrated properly. So I'm the sort of person who, at work, I'm fine. I do my work. I've got my colleagues around me. But somehow I always had this barrier. There was always a barrier. My colleagues never quite merged into being friends. Does that make sense? I don't know whether that makes sense.
It makes sense.
It was actually easy for me to move from job to job because I never really felt like I lost much. But whilst I was in the job, I'd do the job, and God always blessed my work and blessed my efforts. I'm sort of person who knows how to cross my T's, dot my I's. I've got a photographic memory, so I tend to get things done. And and everybody says, "Oh, you're great, and oh, you're so lovely, and you're my friend." And it was always easy for me to move on. And I think that's what made it easy for me to be able to go back to Nigeria to set up this service. So, I think, with purpose, God tends to give us some kind of mindset. So I am an immigrant who didn't necessarily have an immigrant mindset. So that when it was time for me to have to go to give back, it wasn't difficult for me to get up to go. In fact, it was a pleasure, it was an honor, it was a privilege for me in 2018 to be able to get up to go. That's another story on its own.
Okay.
So yeah.
I think I understand. No, it's okay. But I think I understand, because even before you said you felt like God gave you the kind of heart He gave you because it was still going to take you back home. Before you said that,
yeah.
it occurred to me that was probably why. But
yeah.
I think of course it's also because you had lived home during your adult years. You were still like an adult when you left. So you had seen the struggle, you had seen what people were going through, and your heart was with your people. You wanted them to, because that was another thing that attracted me to your brand, because a lot of immigrants who want to do good, they want to help back home in their countries, but they're not sure how to help. You know, they've heard of scams. They've given people money, and somebody says, "Oh, there's a child who has cancer. Let's all donate," and then you find out that it was all a lie. So many of them are jaded. So when I saw you and I see that you are actively helping with your um, adopt a grand initiative, I was like, okay. And I know you're a reputable figure. I know that it's going to where it should go. So I was attracted to that, because I know there's so many of us who want to be a part of that. But I was going to ask the next question. What information would you want someone who's currently transitioning into a caregiver role to know?
So many of us are at that point, isn't it, where our parents have started to get older and they're starting to need help. And I actually say to people, so, you know, sometimes you talk to people. So you talk to people in the community, you know, people around me, and they're like, "Oh, Toyin, I'm so sorry. You haven't heard from me for ages. I'm like, yes, you've got your children, you've got your job, you've got your parents. So many of us have our parents right now who are getting older. Their faculties are starting to diminish. So people are starting to notice things like mobility issues, memory issues, lots of health challenges, and lots of chronic problems that need addressing. And you know, you mentioned something earlier, which is that many of our parents don't actually want us, the children, to tell them what to do. One of the things I hear all the time from my patients, my clients, their children, "Oh, my mom is so stubborn. My dad is so stubborn. They don't want us to tell them what to do. They tend to want to do the opposite of what they're being told to do." And I always say to the children, first of all, it's not peculiar to you. It's every single one of them. Because as these changes are happening to them, they don't like it. They know that they're getting more dependent. These are people who looked after us. Many of our parents, you know, I mean, for most of us to be immigrants, right, to be out of the country and all that, our parents must have done something. They must have worked. They must have struggled. You know, they must have been in positions where they could do things. You know what I mean? So we have parents who have always done something, looked after us, and then they're starting to get frail. They are worried about it. They're scared about it. They are actually resisting that, losing their autonomy, losing that authority. They want to hang on to it for as long as possible. So they will challenge you when you try to tell them what to do. Not all the time, but many of them will. So I always say to people, you have to make them feel as if it is their decision, it is their choice. You always have to make it seem as if it is they made that decision, not you.
Wow.
So you have a parent who's got diabetes, he loves chocolate, he loves potatoes, and his blood sugars are sky high, and you're watching something and you're like, you know, Daddy, it's really, you know, I was just watching this thing and it's saying about this. What do you think? Because they keep talking about chocolate, potatoes. What do you think? Because I don't know whether you know, give them that. And they're sensible. They don't want to lose. They're sensible. I mean, before I came on today, I had 2 teleconsultations with children and parents with issues. And, you know, I always go to the parents first. I always go to them. I don't, even if it's the children, the parents, no, this is it. I explain to them what is going on. They'll always listen to me because I'm not their child. I'm their doctor. So they'll listen to me. They'll listen to me. And I always have to be on their side. So even when they're there, I'm like, you know, Daddy, this is us. Let's talk about this. So you should also try and get help from others. So try and get professional help, get a doctor, a geriatrician, somebody who can talk to them as well, So they might not listen to you. They might actually resist what you're trying to say to them, not because they're not sensible, but just because they don't want to lose that autonomy. They don't want to lose the authority that they've always had. They just want to feel that they're still in control of their lives. So make them feel that way. Make them feel as if they're the ones making the decisions, all the decisions. Yeah, as if you're just guiding them through it or just talking it through somehow. Try not to lose your temper, and get a professional to help you as well. Get a professional to help you.
What are factors that influence the health of elderly immigrants, and how can they be managed? And I bring up this question because, of course, I'm a mom. I have 2 boys. I'm not going to lie. If I could have my mom live with me 24/7, I would be golden. That's how I always feel, right? She lives here in this country, yes, but she lives, away from me. It would help so much if I had my mom living with me to help with the kids instead of bringing in like strangers to help with kids. But and I have other friends in that situation. But I also realize that most of us as immigrants our parents have worked so hard in the past, right? And then us giving them these children who can like make you sweat is also like piling more on them. Because of the way they've been raised, our parents, the way they are, they might not tell you if they're feeling a certain way. They might not tell you if they're having some kind of aches. They might just chalk it up to old age. So what would you say to, people like me? What should we be paying attention to?
So as your parents get older, you must ensure that they have their checkups. Just remind them. Have you gone for, at least here in the UK, from a certain age, you get called. So at age 40, I remember I got called for a checkup. At age 50, I got called for a checkup. I believe I'll get called at age 60. So every so often, you get called by the dentist, you get called by a doctor. In the States, I don't know whether it happens exactly that way, but you must make sure that from age 65, 65 is a cutoff for geriatric medicine, really.
Oh.
Your parents start, oh, yes, yeah, it's 65. It's 65.
Wow.
I mean, I'm 50, I'm going to be 52 in a month. So, 13 years. But yes, from that age, things start to really get pear-shaped. Like you said, the aches and pains, the chronic illnesses. For us as immigrants, remember, we're more at risk of having diabetes. We're more at risk of having hypertension, high blood pressure. We're actually more at risk of having cancer. We're more at risk of dying from COVID-19.
Why do you say that?
Sorry?
Why do you think that we're more at risk?
We are. That's the statistics.
Oh, wow.
That's the stats. Yeah, Africa, Afro-Caribbean, and Asian communities. We're more at risk of having hypertension, diabetes. I think the Southeast Asians are number 1 for diabetes. I mean, hypertension is us. I would say that anybody from the age of 40 should pay very close attention to their blood pressure. And don't say just because you're in the USA or whatever. You must pay attention to it. We're genetically predisposed to having high blood pressure. We've got a system called, it's called a high renin-angiotensin system. It's a system that nature gave us to try and preserve, because, we're Africans, right? So we grew up in Africa. It's hot. It's hot there. So to try and preserve the salt and fluid balance, we have this system. That renin-angiotensin system doesn't work for us because it works in a way, but then it predisposes us to having high blood pressure. So high blood pressure is endemic in Afro-Caribbeans, Black Africans especially. So your parents are here. You must make sure that you pay attention to their blood pressure, their blood sugar, their lipid levels,
Okay.
all those things. We call them vascular risk factors. It's so important. We're more at risk of having these things, and we're more at risk because of these things of having strokes. It is real. I mean it. So I see, with men, prostate cancer. So, on my ward rounds, when I see a elderly black man, and I ask for a PSA, I ask for a PSA in all my elderly black men, because you're more like, it's almost a done deal that they would have it. It's just it's just how virulent it is. So there are certain things that black people have more than their Caucasian counterparts. So as your parents are here, their blood pressure must be checked, must be monitored. They must keep an eye on it. Their blood sugars, their lipid levels, all those things, because you don't want them to have a stroke. I see it so often. I see it all the time. And people don't know that they should have been paying attention to these things. And then how many of our parents exercise? How many of them know that they should? I was brought up by a very peculiar person. My mom was a peculiar parent. My mom was the only mother I knew in my time that actually exercised. My mom used to work out when I was little. I used to work out with her when I was a child, and I'm 52. She was strange. She used to wear hot pants, and she was really slim. And she was very, what I mean? She was very, so my mom, she was quite a rare figure, because most of her friends were quite plump and, just a bit more rotund. So she was unusual. She used to do sit-ups and press-ups and all of that. She's 80 now, and she's fit as a fiddle.
Wow.
Fit as a fiddle. I'm sure she can beat me up.
Wow, she definitely was she definitely is a rare kind of mom. But those you're talking about what? You're talking about that's a long
40
time.
odd years ago, 40 something
Maybe
years
yes,
ago.
I was going to say maybe like
it was
the
very
50s.
I used to think she was rather strange. I must tell you that. I used to think she was strange.
So I want to ask you, so if you're watching, guys, please drop any comments you have in the chat or anything that you're learning from this conversation with Dr. Toyin. I want to ask you, Dr. Toyin, for those immigrants who live in their adopted countries, and then they have parents living back in their own birth countries. So maybe I live in London, and my mom lives in Somalia, for instance. So of course, there's that distance, and I have friends who are personally going through this. There's that distance. Sometimes they have to send money to an uncle to take care of the parent, but they're not really seeing what they should be seeing. They're still hearing reports, and they're not just satisfied. They're worried about, they're not there in person. What would you advise for people like that?
So for me, this is something really close to my heart. This is why I set up JBS Medicare Services. Because of that gap. There was that gap. It's just people here. It's not just people in the diaspora. Even children in Nigeria are really worried about their parents. The care just wasn't there. The expertise in managing elderly people wasn't there. But let's focus on this. You're in the diaspora, your parents are in Africa somewhere. What do? I'm definitely not a fan for the sending money to an uncle, auntie. I have seen too much abuse. You were talking about the adoptogram, you were talking about the scams, you were talking about people being jaded.
Yes.
I went to Nigeria with my eyes wide open. In fact, I think God just blessed me with a great team that settled me down. If I had a nasty experience, we had a few, but not much. God just brought the right people to me, right? So that I was able to get up and go and thrive within this. I have seen horrible things. I have seen a parent who has dementia, who was being cared for. Apparently, the pastor and pastor's wife, they said they were looking after this woman. cleaned her out. We look after her now. Sold off all her properties. I don't know whether her dementia would have been that bad if she had had the proper attention from the word go. They sold off all her things. I have seen an elderly lady with dementia. Children, very educated, well-to-do children. They had this family member looking after this woman. This woman was drugging this elderly lady, drugging her, stealing her things, selling her things. Now they've got, I mean, she was arrested because unfortunately one of the pills she put into the, not a particular day, and one of the sons was visiting and saw this pill in there. Was, what's this? And it was a sleeping tablet. So lots of abuse. I honestly can't. So I'm quite skeptical. So, you know, even with our carers, when I start to get, if I get any reports that doesn't sound right, my antenna is up like this. It's, you know, you'd think, you know, my antenna is up already. My antenna is like up. I'm like on red alert, you know. Yeah. High alert situations because of the things we have seen. You really need professionals to help. In fact, now I'm looking for money to set up a center. Not a home. I don't believe in homes. I don't believe in homes. There are lots of homes anyway. A center where people can be, you know, semi-acute care. It's coming. The money is actually coming. Well, I should hope so. And, you know, in that center, I've said, you know, for people in the diaspora, you know, where you can do what we call virtual visiting, you can see, you know where things are. I just thank God for credibility. I thank God with a Dr. Grant, I'm on it like a hawk. Biodun. Every penny has to be accounted for. I keep telling them, because, you know, sometimes they send you some bill, and they're like, sorry, excuse me, how many grands are in that location? You know, you just have to watch everything. You have to have eyes at the front, the back, you know. So I would say that I have been lucky. I have been blessed with the people around me. I do not leave anything to chance. Sometimes it's stressful, you know, because you really just have to be on top of everything. But people just need to try and get professional help. But like I said, that's why I went to Nigeria. You know, in 10 years before, when I said I was going to do this, I had my young children. I was actively discouraged, actively. You know, some people said to me, in fact, one person in particular, who pays money to look after their parents in Nigeria? You'd almost be better off doing events. Oh yes, you know. But that was where my heart was. I mean, that was my calling. Yes. I know for certain that was my calling, because the minute I put it out on Facebook and Instagram, and people shared and shared and shared and shared. I thought we'd wait for 6 months. There wouldn't be anything to do. I hit the ground running. Wow. So that's when we were there. And, you know, you need special skills to deal with Nigerians, you know. But, I think I have the skills. I must have, otherwise I haven't lost it and I haven't left. Yeah, I haven't left. I think what you just described, Dr. Toyin, is something that I'm very sure people will see and want to replicate in their own countries, because there is, as much as we wish all our whole, you know, every member of our family was with us, it cannot happen that way for everyone. Somebody's parents, or you might even, what I've seen that is also very common is your parents have the chance to be with you, but their heart is still in their birth country. And with the changing weather, it gets cold, it gets rainy. They're like, I want to go where my friends are, and then they go, and then they get taken advantage of. They get into situations that you're not happy with. So I wanted to ask you, tell us a bit more about a Dr. Grant. How does it work? Right. Okay. So a Dr. Grant. So we launched the foundation in March this year. I actually put it out in. Oops, sorry. So when I set up JBS Medicare Services, JBS Medicare Services was to meet that need of providing healthcare for the elderly, because that, just the healthcare situation for elderly people in Nigeria just was not good. People were being mismanaged, and if anything happened, they'll say, oh, they were, because they were old.
Because they're old.
So, but they're only 60 years old, or they're only, oh, well, so that was an excuse for everything. So as soon as that kicked off and, it was out there and people knew that we were doing this, we had JBS Medicare Services, I started getting calls and messages.
Dr. Tony, I can't hear you. Dr. Tony, I think we're having a sound problem. I can't hear you. Might be having a sound issue. Okay, Dr. Tony, can you hear us? We can't hear her. Sometimes with virtual conferences, these things happen, but we hopefully will get it in check very soon. So guys, please stay on. Let's see what we can do. Tech, do we need Dr. Tony to go out and come back? Would that help?
Yes, it might. I think she should try that.
Okay. Dr. Tony, please can you talk? Can you speak again? Maybe we'll hear now. But if we can't, maybe you have to exit and come back. Okay, so we'll wait for her to come back. But I hope we're enjoying this session. So I thought it's very important and it would be necessary for us, especially immigrants, first, second gen, because I know second generation immigrants born in whatever country they now live in, who their parents said, you know what, we've worked hard, we've done everything, we've built a house back in our birth country, we're going back. And then they start to get really dangerous reports about things that are going on with their parents. Oh, your mom fell down today. Oh, yeah, but we took her to the hospital. They said everything's fine. And then weeks later, it's like blown out of proportion and everything is almost unmanageable. And so it was it meant so much to me when Dr. Tony agreed to be on this with us here speaking at the conference about all of what she's talking about. She's a geriatrician. She has so many years of experience, and who better to speak to us about this issue. So we'll wait for her to come back and see. But in the meantime, yes, I think we can. In the meantime, please drop any question you have in the chat. So a doctor grant is not just for, even if you don't have parents back home, but it's something you want to support, you can also reach out to them to support it as well. Dr. Toyin, can you Can you speak now? Let's see.
Yes, yes, I'm
Yes,
back now.
yes, yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Anyway,
Loud
so
and
I
clear.
was just giving you the background as to why we launched the Dr. Grant.
Yes.
So we had a meeting. I had a meeting with my team at the end of towards the end of 2020, because we, especially with COVID-19, there were lots of things going on. Lots of things were happening. I was getting more calls. Oh, there's this grandma in Antony Village who can't do. And I thought, so we had a meeting, and I said, because this wasn't the plan. The plan was to wait. I was going to wait for at least 5 years before 5 years from launching JBS Medical Services before actually going into the charitable side of things. But it looked like there was a great need, especially last year. So we decided that we were going to launch the foundation, which is a charitable foundation, and launch the Adopt a Grant scheme. So the Adopt a Grant scheme, what we do, we started in Nigeria, we started in Lagos State and Ogun State. We've now moved to Abuja. So what we do is that we go to communities, because we actually had communities that we were targeting from the word go because of the reports we had from those communities over the course of last year during the COVID crisis. Okay. And so what we did was we go into the communities. We identify the underprivileged elderly. Now, to identify them, you've got to. We had to sit down and think of some criteria. When we got there, we saw that everybody there was underprivileged. All the elderly in every community that we went to could not afford much. Not even the ones who had people living with them. In fact, heart sink. But we decided that we were going to go with just a certain number per state. So we chose like 40, as in a max of 40 per state, which is small. But we have to do what we can't look after everybody. And we're hoping that we'll be able to get more funds, as we come along, to be able to look after more people. So in Lagos State, we look after 60 underprivileged elderly people. One of our grands died, actually. One of our grands died last week. So we're adopting another grand. In Ogun State, we've got 40 elderly people. We just moved to Abuja. We just identified 20 because, you really have to go into the communities and you have to, interview, and you've got to be sure that these people really can't afford anything, because we've got to make sure that the monies we're raising are being used judiciously and being used right. So I'm actually going to do a post about the Abuja. I was very excited, do a post about the Abuja food distributions, health checks that happened this week. It was interesting because when I looked at I could see that they're younger. I don't think you have any like old people in Abuja. They were younger. There were people from like their 60s, like 75. No one really old, like in Lagos and Lagos and Ogun State. Yeah, and actually pockets of them. So you can support us. You can support us. You can adopt a grand or two. It's coming up to Christmas. What we do is we go. So every month they have a free basic health check. The basic health check, what we do is it's more like a screening, and it's really basic. We've only had to provide specialist treatment for one grand in August. We got there and we just went there for a random food distribution process and saw that she had a fracture. She had a fracture for about a week. So we had to get her sorted out. Yeah, so that cost a bit of money. But other than that, we screen for things like high blood pressure, diabetes, and malaria and infections. That's what we screen for at the basic health checks. And they are given medication to that effect. We give everybody a bit of some vitamins because of COVID-19. And they all have food. So they get food. The clean water, it took us a while to figure out how we're going to do that. But what we've done now is that everybody has some kind of water filter, because we thought about doing boreholes. We thought about doing the bureaucracy in Nigeria is crazy. So, after a couple of attempts, we said, you know what? Let's just give our grants the means to be able to get their water. You get your water, you boil it, you pour it into this filter system. And now in December, we're going to have it's going to be like a food bank. We're just going to ask for donations of food, clothing, shoes, etc. And that's what we're going to distribute as our the Christmas extra to our grants. We get lots of donations of things like soap and all that. So yeah, so that's what we're doing.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Toyin. So I want to come back to the aspect of your career, of your professional life, in the sense of, being a geriatrician and working with the NHS and with UCH. Let's talk about your life in the UK. Did you ever experience dealing with racism or dealing with discrimination at work? And how did you handle it? And how would you advise someone, an immigrant who's having to deal with that, to handle it? Okay, so we might be having a bit of some internet network trouble, but that is anticipated because she's all the way in the UK. Welcome,
really
Dr.
Crazy. I'm so sorry. This is a brand new laptop as well. I got it for the conference last week and it's just not playing well. Yeah, it just keeps going in and out of the network. Sorry about that.
But can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I think that's the major thing. Dr. Toyin, how would you advise, from your experience, have you dealt with racism or discrimination at work as an immigrant and as an African immigrant? And how would you advise someone who, is in the medical field or is in a field that requires them meeting, people and having to deal with higher ups, and then they feel like they're being discriminated against because of their ethnicity or because of their race? How would you advise?
So if I told you I have not had any form of racism or discrimination, I think that would be odd.
No. I've actually met a few people like that who say, really? I've never, yeah.
They must be very thick-skinned. They must be very thick-skinned and they must be able to brush things off.
They must be very thick-skinned. They must be able to brush things off. Okay.
Well, yes. And sometimes these things, if you can have a certain mindset. You can have a certain mindset where you almost, and I think our children, when you talk to our children, they almost have that mindset, a certain mindset of, look, some of this, you don't pay any attention to it, you just carry on doing what you're doing. Unless something because you can work with someone who is overtly racist and then really goes out of your way. I have been lucky, actually. I have been very lucky. I have been very blessed. I remember when I was going to do my membership exams, I did the MRCP membership of the Royal College of Physicians exam. And when I came to the UK, that was one of those exams that nobody passed that exam first time. I mean, they will just tell you you can't pass it. You're an immigrant, you can't pass that exam first time. And I had that in my head. So that was my mindset. Well, I won't pass it first time. There's no way I'll pass that exam first time. Because there's a physical, what do you call it now? There's a physical part to it. It's not all written. There's actually a physical part to it, clinical part to it. And then I worked with a guy who said to me, his name is Leighton Steele, I'll never forget him. And he said to me, just looked at me one day and said, Toyin, I know the people who pass these exams first time, and you're one of them. Nobody had ever said that to me. I'd always felt like I was an immigrant who would not pass it first time. And that's what he said to me. So I've had little snippets, to be honest. Biodun, there are two of us in this dynamic. There's me and there's my husband. I have not really experienced some of the things that my husband tells me he experiences, and I know that he does experience it. It's not, and my husband is a much more integrated person. You know, he's more of an integrated immigrant than I am. Do you understand?
Yes, I
Um,
understand.
I I can't put my hand on any overt racism. I can't
Yes.
say this happened to me. Like I said, I went for my so the things where you'd expect there to be racism. My PLAB exam, I still remember when I went for my clinical part. I went for the Viva part, the interview where people fall short and they I got there and the people, I mean, they were lovely, they were nice. We had a laugh. I came out of it thinking I have obviously failed because those guys didn't ask me any questions. They were having a laugh and I was crying and, I passed it. I passed all my exams first time. First time.
You
All the
did. You did
exams, all the
say.
things that
That's why you did say you have a photographic memory, though. And from the moment you said that, I said, "Ah, it's one of those people. They probably never fail anything in their life."
no, because no, well, no. I don't know. I don't know because I'm blessed. So I was just blessed. God always just put people in my life that would
That
propel
would
me in the
help.
right direction, who would be like mentors, who would, I can name
Mentor.
them. I mean, JBS was actually meant to be MBS after Dr. Morris, Prof. Bacon, Leighton Seal, people who did not know me from Adam. I just got there, and for some reason, they took me as a project. I mean, I'm serious. So it got to the point where my husband just believed I had some kind of halo of blessing.
I can
He
understand that.
says it. He says it as well.
Yeah.
So for this exam, Leighton Seal, I didn't know him from Adam. He just sees me one day and he says, "Toyin, I know something." And then he made it his job to ensure that
Wow.
I passed that exam first time. There were two of us that went for that exam in my hospital. There was me and there was a white girl. And I passed. And everybody was expecting that girl to pass and me to not pass. And I knew it. I knew it. The only person that knew I was going to pass that exam was Leighton Seal. And this
Dr.
guy was actually
Toyin.
my friend, so I'm just saying, and she actually said to me, "Oh, I should have passed. Everybody knew I should have passed that exam," and I was looking at her like, "Well, sorry, but I did." Next
Dr.
time.
Toyin. Dr. Toyin, I want to ask, so we have two more questions for you. I want to ask you, you are a geriatrician, you have a foundation, you have the Medicare services, you travel, you do all of these things, and you're married also to a high-flying gynecologist. How do you handle this? You're two very busy, obviously, professionals. How do you handle, both that, the dynamics of that?
The first thing was I realized I couldn't. You can't do all those things that you just mentioned, and at the same time be able to maintain all your friendships, take your children to ballet, etc., etc. I had to make a choice. So I'm very lucky. I've got friends around me. I've had the same friends for years. So my friends and I'm planning travel. I'm a traveler. Um, I have friends who I always say to them. They always say my friends are very complimentary, very complimentary. And I always say to them, I'm not a good friend because I'm not there for you
Follow up
all
with
the
them
time.
like they do.
But somehow they understand. They understand. They do. They understand. So I'm sort of person who, like, for instance, during the week, my phone is on the do not disturb from a certain time. It's always been. Even before I started this, just with having 4 children and having to work, do all these things, there were some things I could not do. You have to have the people around you have to understand. I can't deal with high maintenance relationships.
High
So
maintenance
if
friendship.
you're the sort of friend who needs for me to be there 24/7, you call me every 2 seconds, I can't do that. So I can't have that sort of life with you.
Wow.
So luckily, I have the sort of friends who I have parties maybe twice a year. all attend, and they think I'm a brilliant hostess, and they're all there. And they might not now hear from me for 6 months, but they don't mind.
Wow.
But when I pick up the phone, say, "Hey, Dolly, party," like, yeah, and everybody, and we're dancing and having a great time. And I decided, now that my children are older, it's now time to start traveling with my friends. So I put it out. I'm like, guys, it's time to start traveling with you. What you say? Let's all head to Egypt. And they've all left it to me. I've actually booked it all and planned it all. I'm actually going to put it out to more people if they want to join us. And that's it. So you have to they're trade-offs. Okay, sometimes I look and I say, oh my God, nobody called me. No friend called me this week. But I know that I'm in their hearts, and I know that if I call them and all of that, so I had to put that aside. Biodu, I don't cook. I can't cook. I can't do it. I can't cook. I don't, I know that I can't cook, but I don't. I can't do it. So if ask me the one thing I don't do, I think if I had to cook as in breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'd probably be dead. I can't do it. So my children can cook. They cook. My husband can cook. He cooks. I have this big sister. That's what she does for a living, and she cooks. So hey, she cooks for me. She cooked for me. I had to delegate that part of my life out.
Delegating. I love that
I had to delegate that part. I delegated that part out. When my children were younger, I had a nanny, I had a cleaner. You'd come to my house. I was broke as anything because by the time I paid the nanny, you paid the cleaner, and I had to do all these things. Then I'll probably go to the nanny and now borrow £10 because I don't have anybody for anything else. Because I'm just the nanny paid the cleaner. I had to get on with my life. I needed to know that my children were fine. It was a priority for me that my children were okay. So I was going to pay. I was going to pay that money. I paid that money until like 10 years ago. I was broke. I didn't have much money. And now I'm not broke anymore.
Amen.
I had to do that. I had to delegate. I had a guy, Mr. Akil or whatever his name was, who had this big van. So anything that my children had to do, I'd call him, he'd come, he'd pick them up, he'd take them. It was like their personal chauffeur, But I had to do it. I'm at work. My one child has an interview or whatever. He would take them, he'd sit there with them. I had to develop this network. I had to have a trusted nanny. I had to have my parents on side. There were times when I'd call and I'd be like, and my mom would actually come running. I know you've said about not wanting your parents to do. My mom was working as well, I know. But my mom would come, she'd come running. My dad, I'd say something. After a while, I'd be like, look, it's like I have 5 children because I have to cook for you. I don't cook. I don't cook. Wait, what's all this? I'm very OCD though. I need for everything around me to be
in place.
I'm sort of person who wakes up at 5 a.m. I'll spend 1 hour tidying up a house that was already tidy. So my everybody just knows that about me. But I don't cook. I do delegate. I delegate a lot. Somehow, God just blessed me with very independent children. But I was saying to someone yesterday, maybe it was that they saw, I look back, my mom's not going to do this also. I better learn how my children are super independent. Super. My 4. I mean, I'll give you an example. My youngest 2, they were 16, 15. They needed to renew their Nigerian passports. They needed to go to the Nigerian High Commission. They went to the Nigerian High Commission. I didn't, quite frankly, I didn't see the application form. It's just over, girls, you need to renew your Nigerian passport. They filled in the form online themselves. They did everything themselves. They asked me a few questions. They told me which day they were going to the Nigerian High Commission. They went to the Nigerian High Commission by themselves. 2 days later, I just saw their passports, the Nigerian passports on my bed. The day they were going for their COVID jabs, they said, "Oh, we're going for COVID jabs." So I have super independent children, but I think it's because they kind of knew that they needed to be.
Dr. Toyin, so we're rounding up. Guys, if you have any questions for Dr. Toyin, you've heard everything that she shared today about Dr. Graham, about JBS. You've heard everything, and you know that she's doing a great work. That's the only way I can describe it. So please, I've shared how you can reach out to her. her email and her IG handle. Please reach out to her respectfully, of course. But thank you, Dr. Toyin. I had to add that. Thank you, Dr. Toyin, for joining us today. Thank you for speaking here at the ImmiGreat Mindset Conference. We really value you. So if there was one, this is the final question I'm going to ask, and it's going to be very short because at 1 we're going to be on Instagram with the immigrant influencers. 3 immigrant influencers. We're going to be talking about immigrant representation. Our podcasts, our YouTube, our Instagram, all of this stuff that we do. How does it make other immigrants look to the world? We're going to talk about that. But here with you, Dr. Toyin, I have one more question before we round up. If you had to travel to just one more country, you've been to 58 countries. If you had to travel to just one more country and not travel again, where would it be? Where would you choose?
Nepal.
Why?
Mount Kilimanjaro.
That's it. That is it. Okay. So we'll keep that in mind. Guys, if traveling is something that you want to do, you've been thinking about it, just go follow her. She's on Instagram at Dr._Ajala Travels. And it's so funny that her name is Ajala because, Nigerians understand. Nigerians understand what that name is, is how we kind of talk about that name. But thank you so much, Dr. Toyin. Our audience today is mixed. There are Americans here, there are Ghanaians here, there are Liberians, there are, different kind of people here, and they have stayed on to listen because they know that they would get value from you. Thank you so much. So grateful to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I hope I answered your questions. I think
yes,
I was
you
passing
did.
around.
Yes. No, yes, you did answer. Guys, we're going to take a break now, and we're going to head over to Instagram. 1 p.m. we start our panel called the Immigrant Representation Panel, and the session is titled "See Us, See Our Stories." That's what it's titled.
All right, everyone. If you haven't already, I want to encourage you to head over to the ImmiGreat.life Instagram page. We're going to be shutting down this Zoom room. Head over to ImmiGreat.life on IG. I'm going to post that link right in the comment section and in the Zoom so that you can get to it directly from here. Remember, we're going to the ImmiGreat.life Instagram page so that we can tune into the live discussion that is going to be happening there at 1 o'clock called See Us, See Our Stories, moderated by Biodun Dapherede. They are now live. Have a great day, and we will see you at the next ImmiGreat Life event. Who knows? Make sure you join the Entrepreneur Facebook group network. Make sure you also sign up to receive ImmiGreat.life mail, IMMIMAIL. This is about a new mindset, a paradigm shift, and we are so grateful that you chose to spend your morning here with us. Have a wonderful day.